Kia ora, ko Richard Templar aho, ko kaiwhakahaere Te Aroanga Aho Engineering New Zealand. I'm Richard Templar, I'm the Chief Executive of Engineering New Zealand, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this, our election conversation series. With me today is Qiulae Wong from the Opportunity Party. It's wonderful to have you here, Qiulae. I wonder if you'd like to start with your elevator pitch for engineering. You have 1 minute.
Kia ora. Thank you very much for having me. I think with the Opportunity Party, since our inception 10 years ago, we've always been about tackling the big challenges and having a long-term view, and that hasn't changed. We have learned a lot in our 10 years of campaigning, but we've really stayed true to those values, and that's really what we're here to do. And I think the other key part is bringing common ground to politics and trying to help, particularly our major parties who actually agree on a lot of things a lot of the time, to encourage them to work together so that we don't have so much of this flip-flopping, which I know is particularly prevalent and costly in infrastructure and in the fields that engineers work in.
Thank you very much. In terms of the swing in infrastructure policy, one of the big developments has been the release of the infrastructure plan by the Infrastructure Commission. What do you consider the most important recommendation in that?
Yeah, and it was great recently to see support for the government's response from Labor and the Greens. We really recognise and acknowledge that. So I think the things that stood out for us really was that long-term investment horizon. That's something that we've been calling for and will be pushing for in our policy platform this year. It's something like a 20 to 30-year plan that we can stick to. And I think it's really important for the Infrastructure Commission to have the powers to enforce some of that where it could be susceptible to change. So that was a really important one. And I think the other thing that stood out to me was the lack of awareness and visibility that we have of how our assets are performing. And so that asset performance reporting and assurance, I think, is really important as well, because I come from a sustainability background and we always say you can't manage what you don't measure, and the same applies for infrastructure.
Absolutely, and one of the key challenges facing infrastructure is, of course, climate change and the increase in natural hazards. What is the Opportunity Party going to do to help New Zealand's resilience and adaptation in that space?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to attend the Aotearoa Circle's Natural Infrastructure Report launch, which was just after the National Infrastructure Plan. And I think that is really at the heart of how we see infrastructure as well. So it's not just the things we build, but it's the natural environment as well. And we need to see government incentivise New Zealanders, businesses, farms to invest in that natural infrastructure to protect it against natural hazards and for the next generation. So we would like to see things like biodiversity credits where farmers can invest in restoring wetlands and natural habitats because that will help to protect some of those communities in future.
So in terms of biodiversity credits and other schemes like that, how do you pay for it?
Yeah, well, there are some interesting models that are already emerging. One of the big challenges around biodiversity is how you measure different types of nature investment. But, credit to some amazing New Zealand businesses that are already leading in this way. And obviously we have the nature reporting framework, which helps businesses to sort of quantify their impacts across different things. So those credits can be paid for by the private sector to offset in a similar way that we do with carbon. And that partly could come from government funding, could partly come from private sector, and it also comes from overseas. If we can build attractive investment propositions here, that will both help to reduce our offset costs in the long term and build more resilience in our natural infrastructure.
So a biodiversity market and a carbon credit market.
Yeah, I think they're complementary. One isn't necessarily better than the other. We need both, and many places around the world are already demonstrating how you can do that well, including in New Zealand.
One of the challenges in the carbon space is, of course, how do we achieve reliable and sustainable energy supply? What's your view on what should be happening with the energy sector?
Yeah, energy is a big priority for us. We did launch our abundant energy policy back in February this year, before the fuel crisis kicked off, because from speaking to businesses, infrastructure providers, communities, everybody was talking about the fact that a long-term energy strategy is critical for our long-term productivity and resilience. And so we've detailed quite an extensive energy policy there. Part of that is a capacity investment scheme. So we think that government guarantee of new renewable generation coming online can really help to incentivise the gentailers to act, because we have a lot of renewable energy projects consented and ready to go, but our just-in-time model means that they don't bring that online until it's really needed, which kind of puts us at risk of that dry year spike. So that would solve that part. We've also proposed that the government ring fence the dividends that they get from those gentailers. That's around $500 million a year that we could direct into accelerating electrification. That means that the gentailers, again, have more certainty of demand, and it helps the government to, I guess, wean itself off the addiction from those profits and use it for what it should really be used for.
In terms of incentivising electrification, would you reintroduce incentives for electric vehicles?
So our focus has been on market mechanisms that can encourage and accelerate uptake. We think that the economics stacks up, and usually subsidies are needed when the economics don't really stack up. So we're supportive of things like the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme, which is already going through the House, and expanding warmer Kiwi homes in particular. So that's sort of how we address electrification in the home. In terms of cars, I think you've also got, you would be able to access some of that support for chargers at home and things like that, which I think would also add to making that economics equation stack up for people. It's really about lowering that initial capital outlay that people need to invest in this, and maybe accelerate the payback time. But that's how we would approach it, try and incentivise, create more market incentives than necessarily just straight subsidies.
You've talked about productivity and also electrification, and one of the areas that's seen needing to lift productivity but also electrifying is the manufacturing space in New Zealand. How do we get how do we grow our manufacturing sector and make it more profitable?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that abundant renewable energy is the first step and a really important piece of that puzzle. It's going to become even more critical in the coming decades. Cheap renewable energy is going to be what powers successful, profitable businesses. So I think that that's really important. But the other two parts for us of productivity are investment in innovation and R&D, and then our tax system. We want to shift some of that burden off income tax and off businesses onto assets like property. And I think that will mean we've got more money flowing into businesses to invest in startups and help with the scale up of our manufacturing, and make sure that we have a thriving, productive economy.
In terms of your suggested changes to the tax, how would that incentivise investment in business?
Mm-hmm. So at the moment, people have done exactly what the system encourages them to do. They buy up large property portfolios to save for their retirement because it's been the most stable and secure thing to invest in. If we introduce a land value tax, that makes that less profitable. Some people might still choose to do it and make money, and that's all good. But it means that people will look at different options. So investing in funds and shares, even putting more money into your KiwiSaver, which then might in turn invest more in the business sector. We've also already seen things like Sam Stubbs' InfraKiwi ideas, and I think a lot of our KiwiSaver providers are now investing in local Kiwi businesses because they see that as a great place to get good returns. So if we've got more money flowing into those funds, that provides stable returns for New Zealanders, but it also means we've got more capital to flow into our amazing businesses.
You've mentioned R&D and innovation. What would the Opportunity Party do to change the system in that space?
Yeah, so we have quite low investment, pretty woeful low investment actually in New Zealand in R&D and innovation, even though we pride ourselves as an innovative country. So we would like to see that at least come up to OECD average levels, which is around 2%, with a plan to actually get to 3% over time. So step one, get more funding into the system, because if we're not funding the top of the funnel, then all of our good ideas are going to dry up and we won't have the rocket labs of the future. But then we also need to make it easier for businesses to access that funding. We're sort of proposing a fast track access pathway for businesses that are working with universities to get a low kind of grant amount to invest in innovation. And I think we also need to look at that scale up part of the pipeline. A lot of money, the money that we do have at the moment, goes into the initial research stages, but it's really hard for businesses to find that capital for scaling in New Zealand, which means they tend to go offshore or sell to overseas investors. We want more of that money to stay in New Zealand so that these HQs of these businesses are built here and we attract talent to come here and work in them. But that means we need more money in that scale-up part of the pipeline.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time today, Qiulae Wong. Thank you for talking to us about what the Opportunity Party will do for the whole engineering profession. And if you've enjoyed that conversation, we can't wait to see you on the 6th of August for our great infrastructure debate. Thank you very much.